If your divorce was finalized as of 2019 and on, alimony is no longer taxable income to the person receiving the alimony and is no longer considered deductible to the person that is paying it. If your divorce was pre that year, then yes, you're still able to write off the alimony payments that you're making to your ex-spouse, and that spouse would have to report that as income. Well, hello. My name is Monika. I'm an enrolled agent and TPI fellow and CEO of Decision Financial Services, and I like to welcome you today to this episode of The Wealthy Wallet. I'm pretty excited about my guest that I have on today. I have with me today Leslie Barrows from the Barrows firm. She's a divorced estate planning attorney locally here in Southlake. I actually know her personally, know her work personally, because she was my attorney representing me during my lovely divorce. And so I really learned quite a bit of information going through this divorce. But one of the things that I was truly grateful in when I was going through this nightmare was the fact that I had enough information in my toolbox, whether legally or financially, to be able to defend myself with Leslie. And so I hope the information that is given today can kind of give all of you that might be having to be going through something like this or possibly considering it enough information to reach out and seek further legal advice. I definitely recommend a consultation when you're going through something like this. So Leslie, welcome on the podcast. I'm really glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you chose this field of law.
Do you still feel sorry for me?
I really do, actually.
I hear that a lot. Well, I'm a boy mom, have 3 boys. So I have a 17-year-old and then 2 14-year-old boys. And I went to Sam Houston State University. And then when I was there working, or going to school, I was volunteering at a women's shelter, and I think we called it a safe house back then. And so I was helping women get protective orders. So that was kind of my entry into family law, is helping these ladies fill out the protective order, applications. And then when I graduated and decided, hey, I want to go to law school, I went to Oklahoma City University, and there was an option for you to do an internship. And so I did choose the internship with legal aid in Oklahoma. And then that's where I was in the family law division. So it was a really cool experience because I got to work with all kinds of people going through divorce. And usually with legal aid, back then you had to have family violence. So it was still kind of a connection with, ladies that were going through protective orders and difficult divorces, having a lot of trauma and had injuries, so that was pretty much how I got into practicing family laws. I started in college and then worked my way up and did it, for 3 years at the legal aid in Oklahoma. So I tried to go to do criminal law when I landed back here in Texas, but I did that for a while. But once I had we had our first baby, I was preparing for jury trials on the weekends and trying to do that. And then when we found out we're having twins. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do criminal law, because I tried to go and ask for, we have to do a vacation letter if we're going to be out of court. And I tried to do a vacation letter for every Friday. So, and then I think one of the judges was like, what do you think you're doing? I said, well, I have a set of twins, and I'd like to spend some time with them. So it was just more of a, family laws is something that you can do, pretty much Monday through Thursday, and you can control, you don't have a lot of jury trials, but you have trials and you have hearings. But that's just something that just worked better with my schedule, and I'm not going to, if I'm doing a trial, it's going to be for, 2 or 3 days. I'm not going to be in trials, like in criminal trials, for weeks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when I transitioned. I said, well, this is better for, basically family law was better for my family, to be able to do both be a mom and, then have your own business. So
Sure. So what are the primary steps involved in a divorce process?
Well, usually on the divorce process, there's going to be one person that wants the divorce, and not always both parties want the divorce. So I say it's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you have the person who's dumped, and then the dumpy and the dumper. So usually you kind of have to handle that on both levels. When people come to me, they may be crying or they may be excited, like, hey, I really need out of this. I need a divorce. I got to get out of this relationship. It's been bad for so long. But usually the first step is, consulting with the lawyer and then filing a petition for divorce. And you either serve the person with the citation or you can give them a waiver of service. So some divorces come into me and they say, we're amicable, we're agreeable. But then, once they get that petition for divorce and read it, if it's not like the nicest thing ever, they're not going to sign a waiver, and then you have to, serve them, and that gets the 60-day clock ticking for a divorce.
Okay.
So
Okay. And what are the most common misconceptions people have about getting divorced?
I think people believe that it's going to be quick and easy, and sometimes you have to let people have to heal during the process. So, it's kind of like if you rip the Band-Aid off, I just want this done. And sometimes that's not good for people because I think they need to process like what's happening, because it is like a death, it's like if you've had a loss because you're having to go through, going through all of your financials, and then and then if someone has an affair, or there's social media posts, or there's text messages that you found, things like that. I mean, I think people think it's, something that's going to be pretty easy, but it really just depends. Each case depend on, the circumstances of the relationship and how long they had that relationship. Because are you fighting about kids, or are you just fighting about property, or both?
Sure.
It's not an easy, fast process.
No, that makes sense. What factors do courts typically consider when it comes to dividing marital property? I know that was a stickler for for me.
So basically, I tell people, you walk into a courtroom and you're going to get a 50-50 split. You get half of the community assets, and the other spouse gets the other half of the assets. And that makes people mad, because if you were the primary breadwinner, if you were the one that, hey, I'm the saver and then he's the spender, which that happens a lot, in our area, because it's usually one person is a saver, and hey, I have retirement and I would have so much more if, he wasn't out going and buying a Corvette, or going and buying, going and buying fancy suits there at the town square. So, and spending a lot of money. So I think you have to usually, the courts are going to say 50-50. If you have a stay-at-home mom who that's all they've done. I had one lady, I think she had 4 or 5 children, stay-at-home mom. I mean, the judge is going to give her 65% of the community estate, and they're going to give her, child support and things like that. Because, I mean, for someone that's been staying at home with children and has been out of the workforce for so long, it's so hard for them to get back into the workforce. Because, I mean, technology, if you haven't been on a computer, if you haven't been, multitasking like we have to do, every day with, both of our
Right.
businesses, you lose that, because you're multitasking in a different way with kids and the home life. It's different than the work environment.
Right.
So of course, someone like that's going to get, more of the community estate, because she stayed home with the children. He's been able to climb up the ladder at whatever work, the husband was doing. So that's pretty standard. And I get questions a lot too. Well, I didn't want the divorce, so can I get more? Not really, unless you're going to prove like there was family violence, or some other reason.
Sure, sure. And what about child custody? How's that determined?
Well, the new kind of trend is what's called a 50-50 or shared possession schedule. So, we've for so many years, the legislature has had us doing, let's make mom primary, and mom decides that she has to, where the kids go to school. And then mom will decide, all the exclusive rights about medical and psychological for the children. Um, but but it's really changed. Dads aren't just getting a standard possession schedule, which is first, third, and fifth weekends, and then you have the summer schedules. A lot of times, now with summer schedules, we're doing like a week on, week off. So people, if the kids want to go to camp or the parents want to travel, some people are doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off in the summer. But we're doing more of custom schedules for families too, where if the children are a little bit older, we're doing a week on, week off during the school year, and so you can keep that consistent throughout the whole entire year.
Okay.
But a lot of times, I mean, the truth is that men don't want to pay child support, and so what that's becoming the issue of, if you have an equal custody arrangement, what you're saying is equal. And so mom and dad get week on, week off. Well, when mom starts sending the bills for, the competitive cheer and, the Lululemon shorts that you had to buy and the special tennis shoes. And then when, if you have a kid in baseball and you had to buy, a special bat for the kid, and you had to get, tutoring for the kid. So when all that stuff's adding up, the parents aren't truly, it's not a true split.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's going to be more litigation in the future because people have been agreeing to all these schedules with the week on, week off and shared custody arrangements with no child support. And here we are where one parent's getting stuck with a lot of the, upkeep and, the fees and the tuition for the kids, and the other parent's not having to pay it.
How long after can someone go back to court and try to get back child support?
Well, we've been, usually you can go modify every 3 years. You can also, before a child turns 18, you can go back, and if like dad hasn't paid for, several years, like I have one, I don't think the guy's paid for like 6 years, and we just went back. And I tell and a lot of times people they don't want to make the other parent mad. And that is the problem, because then they start talking about, well, I've taken dad back to court. I'm taking your mom back to court, and getting the kids involved, which is really not, the kids don't want to be involved.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime the kids talk to the judges, they don't want to be there. They don't want to be in the middle of mom and dad's, arguments, and they, they know what's going on. They talk to their friends, they see, their friends' parents getting divorced, things like that. They don't want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
And people just drag them into it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a shame.
Uh-huh.
So tell us a little bit about what is a prenup and a postnup.
Well, we do way more prenups than postnups, because really, if you're married to someone and, they, have some big movie deal, or they've come into a lot of money. I mean, and why would you want to sign a postnup, and say, okay, well, you can keep that. It's not going to be community property. So really we do way more prenups and, than we do with what we call the postmarital agreements when they're already married. And so the prenuptial agreements are usually, a lot of people now if they're getting married later, they've had retirement, they have, maybe they have a house, but a lot of the relationships now, they're buying houses together. So who knows what's going to happen, because they're not getting married, but who knows what's going to happen, in a couple years if the relationship falls apart. But the prenups are usually, the weddings are usually in the summer, so it's kind of a busy prenup season around, May before, and there's a lot of more destination weddings,
Yeah.
So as long as I have the wedding date, and I always tell them, both parties definitely need their own attorney, because you don't want to. It has to hold up in court.
Sure. Sure. So how can someone best prepare for their first meeting with you?
I think, it's, I tell people, I haven't lived in your shoes. I haven't lived your life. I don't know. And I'm having to, get up to speed on a relationship that maybe you've had for, 20, 30 years. So I kind of need a chronology and like a high points of, when the marriage was bad, when you guys separated, any issues, concerns you had. We usually financials. Every time if we have a hearing, the first thing that we ask people for is the last 3 pay stubs. We need the proof that there's health insurance and dental insurance for the children. We also ask for the tax returns, and then that's when they find out, oh, he hasn't filed for taxes. I thought he did, and then it's like, well, you need to go see a CPA, and you guys need to work this out because like we can't even settle your case if you guys haven't filed taxes in like 4 years. You gotta get this going. So and I'm sure, and then I send them over to you, so then you can tell them what's what.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually a lot of it's finances, and I mean, I'm I don't love spreadsheets, but I have to love spreadsheets. So when
I love
I
spreadsheets.
know, and so I love people that love to do spreadsheets and have them. Here's what I have. Here's my accounts, and here's my money, and then this is how we should split it. I love those. So they're so helpful. So spreadsheets are always fun, and being where we are, there's a lot of people that are very good at spreadsheets and Excel. So
Yeah. Yes. We have to be.
hmm
Have you noticed any trends with divorce, or are they on the rise, going down? I mean, I know COVID brought out
hmm
quite a bit of divorce rates or separation. So,
absolutely, with COVID, because people were working at home, they're stressed. If they were drinking, they were drinking way more. So a lot of substance abuse issues, yeah, going on, and just family violence was up, right?
yeah.
So we find now, though, that as the population's aging, these people that have been married for 30 plus years are like, have found someone new or have rekindled a relationship, with some, when they went to, their 30th high school reunion, and are moving on and saying, hey, I don't want to be with this person anymore. The one that I've been with, I'm done. I'm tired of being, treated like crap. And the kids are all grown up. We kind of, our assets are good, right? We both have retirement. We have a house. And they come in and they're like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So really it's the great divorce is kind of the one that's on the rise. Cause I have had people that are in their 80s getting divorced. And I know
Oh my
a lot of
gosh.
people say, well, why? Well, they've probably married someone that was younger, right? And that person's wanting to move on because they're like, I don't want to be a caregiver for you. Like, I'm not your nurse. I'm your wife, or,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that is definitely on the rise. And then, I mean, you will have people that have 3 and 4 children, and when graduation is in May, people are already calling going, hey, this last one's about to graduate. I'm getting divorced. Like,
Oh my
I can't.
gosh.
I'll look in the back seat and it's like, I'm not going to be with this man anymore, or this woman.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They're like, I've done. I've raised my kids. They're going to they're all going to go to college. They're going to do their thing, but I can't live with them.
Because they stayed married
Mhm.
because of the sake of the kids.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Mhm.
So, what do you find most rewarding about family law?
I think empowering people to get through pretty much your worst time of your life, because people will be really down and apologetic and feeling bad about themselves, and just, I've done all these things wrong, but really, I think they've been living in this world that's not healthy for them. So they've been so unhealthy for so long, they don't even see that, my relationship is not right. Like, this is not, I shouldn't be treated like this. I shouldn't be called names, I shouldn't have to be communicated through, the way that I'm being communicated with my spouse. And so I think that's the best part, I represent both, the same amount of women and men, but on both sides, they're empowered at the end to kind of get through the process,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm pretty honest with people. If I think, hey, you need some therapy, maybe you need some little, Prozac to get you through it, then I tell them, like, you have to do something for yourself to get through it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can't obsess about things, and you can't hyper focus on what you're going through, because you're not going to be able to get through it, and be and be stable for yourself and for your children. So,
I would think that would be, for me, would be the hardest to
mhm,
deal with all that emotion and trying to get a person to put the emotion aside and just look at the facts, because emotion can't really be involved
mhm,
in the divorce. But it is part of the divorce because it's what's the leading factor, what's going on.
right, because you don't know how long people have been going through, and you have losses of, I mean, your parents. You've had, you've dealt with. I mean, there are people where they've dealt with so many. They've had like 5 or 6 deaths, and then they're like, "Oh, now I'm going through a divorce." And it's like, yeah, I mean, you have a lot of stuff that you have to go back and process, because you've just been living life going through it as fast as you can, and you have to slow down for yourself and get through the divorce, because your relationship is not healthy.
Right, right. Can you share a success story or case?
Um, well, I have lots of those. I don't like to lose. I think I think I think a big win is when you have parents of a child, and they they completely don't communicate. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, they are just they we call it parallel parenting. And it happens a lot with people that meet on the internet and get together with someone, have a baby, don't necessarily have to get married. But I had a success story a couple weeks ago where we went to final trial, and the divorce had been, I mean, it wasn't a divorce, but the case had been pending since 2021. And the baby, and so it started out as an infant, and the baby now is 3. And I got the mom's sole custody, and retroactive child support
Wow.
and attorney's fees, probably close to $100,000
Oh my
award
gosh.
against the father. And he has supervised visitation for until he can provide a clean drug test.
Wow. Wow.
And and we have to deal with a lot of, like, the alcohol abuse and the substance abuse, and it's along any line. Like, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is. I mean, it can happen to anyone.
Sure, sure. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you felt would be important for the people that are listening to this podcast know?
Um, no, I think, when you're interviewing, when you're interviewing attorneys, just if you guys can hit it off, like, if your personality, if you need someone that is going to be strong for you, or if you need someone who's going to be more passive, then those are things you would look for in your attorney. If you're going to be able to communicate, how they communicate. Are you a text message person? Are you an email person? Are you, do you need to be told, hey, this is what needs to happen? Do you need to have weekly meetings? There's just a way that, each of us work. And in order to get through the, it could take 2 months, or you could be stuck with me for 3 years.
Right.
So because I think my longest was probably 3.5 years.
Wow. Good Lord. That's a
So
long time.
that's what you kind of have to look at. But I try to get people in and out of the process as efficiently as possible, and try not to drag things out,
Yeah.
because it is hard on it's financially, it's hard, and physically it's draining. Mentally, when you're sued, you are in the state of mind of, I got to fight. And sometimes that puts people into depression, where they're like, I'm just going to give them everything.
Right.
And so you'll get, sometimes you get that. I'm just going to give them everything, because I can't fight with these people anymore, because it's a lose-lose.
Right.
And sometimes you'll hear stories like that where people are like, I left my first husband or my first wife, and I left everything in the house because I didn't care. Like, I got to move on,
Right. Right.
for your sanity.
Yeah. Good Lord.
Because, yeah, you need that for your sanity.
You definitely do. Money is not worth it. Assets
Mhm.
are not worth it, even though sometimes it's a little frightening, particularly if you're in the older generation and you've worked so hard and then all of a sudden you're
Yep.
faced to, but it's just not worth it for health purposes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
just make yourself sick.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Well, some of the things that I like to end with, obviously, every time I do one of these episodes happens to be around taxes. And so a couple things is that if your divorce was finalized as of 2019 and on, alimony is no longer taxable income to the person receiving the alimony and is no longer considered deductible to the person that is paying it. If your divorce was pre that year, then yes, you're still able to write off the alimony payments that you're making to your ex spouse, and that spouse would have to report that as income. Child support is never, never taxable, never has. And I really highly doubt that it ever will be because that has to be directly related to the children. The other thing is claiming the children on a tax return. A lot of times I have seen in my practice, someone comes in and says, well, I get to claim her, and the husband's going to claim him. And then all of a sudden it turns out the daughter is going to college and they're losing the exemptions, but the son is still living at with the mother and they're extremely upset because their main provider. A divorce decree does trump the IRS rules if it is stated in there that that's how the way it has to be. But if you are a custodial parent and you're releasing that custodial parent's right, you do have to file a form. It's Form 8832 on a tax return. A lot of times I do not see that being filed. They just go off of the decree, and then all of a sudden later down the road, there's this gigantic fight because someone can no longer claim the child. And the last thing I want to do is give a little bit of a strategy. So as Leslie mentioned, there a lot of times there's the division of assets. And some of those assets may be a business, for example. And to find the value of that worth of that business so you know the fair division of that asset, you have to do a proper evaluation of that business. And there's going to be attorney fees. Not only are there going to be the evaluator's fees, but there's also going to be Leslie's fees in relation to that aspect of your divorce. Those fees are deductible against the business. And so you really want to make sure when you're discussing with your attorney to possibly get the breakdown, which I know that they do, they break down their hours. So you're able to determine that money. So at least you get a little bit of a write off because other than that, legal fees are no longer deductible since the 2017 Tax Act. So again, Leslie, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. This was wonderful information. Anyone out there that's listening that is struggling, that is going through divorce, was trying to do it on their own, was feeling that it was amicable and doesn't feel that it's amicable, trust me, truly trust me, hire an attorney, get that consult, really understand what is going on because it is very emotional. It's overwhelming. It is very easy just to throw up your hands and say, I don't want to do it. But then the last thing you're going to do is build resentments. It's going to be better. And trust me, you want to fight for your children. Child support is for your children. It is not for you. It's not for the spouse. It is for your children. And it really requires having a professional attorney at your side dealing with all of this. So Leslie's information will be at the end of this podcast. Again, please feel free to reach out to her if you need any assistance. And I want to thank you all for watching The Wealthy Wallet. Our next episode actually is going to be my bookkeeper, Yvonne. She is retiring. So she's going to be my guest on her retirement date. And we're going to discuss the proper need for books as well as things on how you should get prepared for that retirement because she's learned quite a bit. So thank you, everyone. I look forward to talking to all of you again on the next episode. Bye.